So we'll recapitulate what we studied last time. We began with the conception that all this universe is for habitation by the Lord. The individual must renounce his claim for possession and thereafter enjoy what he is given. And this enjoyment consists in work, activity, not in quietistic pursuits, and done in this spirit of renunciation of desire. Action does not bind. During life, one must try to fulfill the purpose of life, to fulfill the intention of the soul, which is to arrive at God and express God in life. Those who do not, those who pursue the opposite path of hurting their souls, of denying their souls, by going backwards, their worlds after passing are worlds of gloom and darkness. The reality is beyond our mental conceptions. It is stable, it does not move, but at the same time it is faster than the mind. It stands, but it is always ahead of our psychological faculties that move. They are called the gods. The gods are psychological powers in man. And a person who sees this reality, this self of things in all existences, and all existences in the self, has nothing to fear, and he shrinks from nothing, because he is one with everything. There is nothing outside of him, there is nothing foreign or alien to him. And a person who sees, he not only arrives at his self, but experiences that self becoming so many existences around. That person has the real knowledge, and as a result of that knowledge, he has oneness. And a person who has oneness, from where can he have grief? All this world, all this universe is not a creation with the Creator somewhere above. It is He that has gone abroad. That is, it is the divine reality that has moved in time and space and constitutes this universe. It constitutes this universe. It enters this universe, it indwells, and it is the perfect seer. It has ordered the regulation, the movement for all time, from the beginning of time. So nothing really goes against the will of God ultimately. There is a lot of meandering scope during transitional stages, but ultimately the law prevails. Then the next moment of thought, and that is those who are occupied and are lost in ignorance enter into darkness, no doubt. But those who devote themselves exclusively to knowledge, they enter into a greater darkness. The idea is ignorance is knowledge of the multiplicity, and knowledge is awareness of unity. So if you are lost in multiplicity without being aware of unity, you are nowhere. You are in a confusion. But if you confine yourself only to that unity, ignoring all this multiplicity, then you enter into a greater darkness from which it is more difficult to come out, because you enter into a kind of non-becoming. The path of wisdom is to know that both knowledge and ignorance are two sides of truth. Through ignorance, through knowledge of multiplicity, one crosses beyond death. And with knowledge, when you have got the knowledge of unity, you have to come back and affirm that knowledge, and thereby you are immortal. Same way, birth in this world and non-birth. Those who devote themselves only to this world, experience of this world alone, they enter into a darkness. But those who go beyond this birth, beyond this world, into a nirvana or a superconscious darkness, superconscious life, that is another darkness. Any of these exclusively is a darkness. Both have to be combined, and when both are combined, it leads to fulfillment. The stress you will note is on acceptance of this world equally with what is beyond, not always fixing our attention there and ignoring this world. And the truth as it is covered with a brilliant golden lid. The knowledge of truth, the truth knowledge, is the sum of truth, and it is covered with a golden lid. That lid is formed of the ideas, concepts, thinkings of the mind. Mind always moves in grooves, in certain limitations. So he says, he prays to the Lord of Truth to remove this lid. And how do you do that? He says, marshal thy rays, rearrange the mental conceptions, mental ideas, focus them. And when you do that, the luster, the true orb of this truth is seen. And when you see that, you suddenly realize that he and I are the same. The supreme revelation of the divinity awakens in you the sense of identity, the experience of identity between yourself and the divine truth. This body of this, he says, this is from where we have to continue. Vayuranilam amritam athedam bhasmantam shariram om krato smara kritam smara krito smara kritam smara. This body, physical body of ours, is destined to be reduced to ashes. What is immortal is the breath of things, the life force, the life energy that activates the body, that is immortal. And immortality is really continuity of consciousness, continuity of what? Knowledge. There should be no gap. So this seer prays, O will is the principle of fire, the willpower, and that is prayed to remember what was done. That which is done, remember. This is a clue that if we want to have a sense of immortality, we must cultivate memory, consciousness. We must be conscious. To constantly recall what we experience, what we have done, and relate it to each other, trace a continuity in our life. That is a preparation for immortality. If we leave gaps in our mind, in our awareness, to that extent we are imperfect and we become less than human. There is something in us which is higher than the mind. It is the intelligence embedded in the willpower that is called flame or Agni, and that is to be tapped, cultivated, and that is prayed to lead us by the good path to the felicity. Remove from us the devious attraction of sin. The path to felicity is straight, direct. The pull of sin is a deviation from truth. And this sin has many crooked paths. So, Agni, the flame power, is prayed to lead us by the good path to the felicity. Remove from us the devious attraction of sin. To thee, completest speech of submission, we would dispose. That is, we bend ourselves, we subordinate ourselves, we submit ourselves to this God, Agni. Agni Naya Supatharaye Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan Yuyodhi Asmat Juhuranameno Bhuyishtamte Nama Uktim Vidhema. This is the 18th verse. Now, we should note that this Upanishad takes a number of opposites, fundamental opposites in life, and resolves them, reconciles them. The first is the conscious Lord and phenomenal nature.
Excuse me, we're still on Isha now? Isha?
Yes, same. It is, I am tracing the, yes. So you can say the first opposite is of God and nature. Normally, God is taken as opposite of nature and they are mutually exclusive. But here, nature itself is treated as a movement of the Lord. Nature, the forms of nature, are meant for the habitation by God. The second pair of opposites is enjoyment and renunciation. The text says that you have to renounce desire and then enjoy this world. When you renounce desire, you are in a position to draw and participate in the cosmic delight of existence. Third pair of opposites is action and freedom. Action binds only when it is motivated by desire and ego. But when action is done in the right consciousness, that all is the Lord, then action does not limit one's freedom. The fourth pair is quietude and movement. Both of them are really statuses of the Lord. Quietude is within, movement is external. External movement is fruitful to the extent it is based on an inner quietude. The fifth pair is being and becoming. In normal philosophical disputation, they are erected as contraries. They say if there is being, there can't be becoming. If there is becoming, it is only becoming. But here, the text takes up the position that because there is being, becoming becomes possible. And this being is not an inert existence confined to the status of being alone. It affirms itself into becoming. The next pair is the active and the inactive Brahman. It says there is only one Brahman, one reality, who takes two statuses, in action and free from action. The next pair is Vidya and Avidya, knowledge and ignorance. Ignorance is awareness of the many. Knowledge is consciousness of the One. Both are complementaries, two sides of the same truth. Because the many cannot exist without the one. And the one manifests itself as the many. Experience of both is necessary. Then comes birth and non-birth. Birth pertains to this material universe. Non-birth to supraterrestrial worlds. Confinement to material life alone is limiting oneself. Confining oneself to the beyond alone is to deprive oneself of the rich experience of the world. One has to acquire experience of the beyond and bring that consciousness to bear on life on earth. The last pair of opposites is works and knowledge. Normally, works are treated as inferior means of bondage, and knowledge as superior. Actually, when the true knowledge dawns, which is different from the knowledge of the mind, works are seen as movements of knowledge, affirmations of knowledge. In other words, there is a unity in the whole scheme of life. Life is not confined to terrestrial existence. It gets its full meaning in the context of what is behind and what is beyond. But what is above remains unexpressed, inarticulate, if it is not lived and organized in terrestrial terms. So this Isha Upanishad addresses itself to this question of the contradictions in life and builds a comprehensive vision in which things find their justification in a whole consciousness. The next Upanishad, the Kena, which again derives its title from the first word, proceeds by analysis. It also examines the problem of life, but through a method of analysis and not synthesis.
Excuse me, could you repeat that? It examines the problem of life through
Analysis and not through synthesis, which is the way of the Isha Upanishads. Now, before we go that, perhaps you have questions to ask on this Upanishad. Actually, this one Upanishad should occupy the whole course. It is that deep. And Sri Aurobindo's whole philosophy of life divine is based on this text. So much so that he wrote many commentaries, and one of the commentaries, one of the versions was titled Life Divine, long ago. But it is a seminal work, and it requires a lot of meditation, lot of study, reading and rereading. But the university academic courses are different, so we can only have a general idea.
The life divine was, it's about one Upanishad?
No, Sri Aurobindo's main philosophy is enunciated in his work called Life Divine. Understand? And that is really based upon the seminal ideas which are in this Upanishad. He has developed them and applied them, related them to modern truths of science, evolution, society, humanity, and things like that. because these are very cryptic verses. In those days, there was no paper, pencil. People had to memorize, and carry from mouth to mouth. So it became a technique to compress what you have to say in the minimum words, and they are called aphorisms. And no aphorism can be understood without explanation, what it contains. So this Upanishad, for instance, it has so many commentaries by so many people, each reading one's own philosophy in this Upanishads. They twist the phrases, they misinterpret words, and use it to justify their own approach. For instance, there is a philosophy which says that this world is an illusion. This world is a mirage. Only the divine is true. So give up participating in this world. Cancel yourself and merge in God, Brahman. That is called monism. There is another, they say this world has meaning, but it is derived from God. So there is always a difference between man and God, between nature and God. We can never unite with God. There is another philosophy which says nature and God and man, they are different categories. Man can only serve God, but he can never unite with God. So there are many permutations, combinations.
What is that last philosophy?
It is called dualism, Dvaita, where they say man, nature and God are different. But man has to depend on God. But there is a gulf which you can never cross. He can only be the Lord and you can only be the master. You have only to serve him.
And the philosophy in between?
In between is called Vishishtadvaita, qualified non-dualism, where you can have relation of love, you can have relation of intimacy with God, but you can't become one with God. Now Sri Aurobindo says that all these three are based on different spiritual experiences, but one does not cancel the others. He says it is possible for a person to have all the three experiences simultaneously. That is, deep within yourself, you feel, you experience an identity with the divine reality. Deep within yourself, you find you don't exist, only that is there. Come out, at the level of emotions, you have love for God, you have devotion, and that is at the heart level, the play, relationship with God you can have. And externally, material, nature is different, God is different. So it is possible to have all the three experiences. Each has its truths. But falsehood comes when each claims to be exclusive truth. So we said we should deal with questions that arise from what we have read or discussed.
one thing that struck me while I was reading the Isha Upanishad was in the analysis by Sri Aurobindo, he was writing about the difference between solidarity and unity in terms of and how and I've been looking at that how much unity in my life and people I see is like a struggle to do this thing called unity, and it's starting from an assumption of non-unity.
Yes.
Rather than starting from the assumption of unity, and then supporting that and involving, and or being realized, whatever. That struck me very much because it's kind of subtle. But look at all the movements in the world, the solidarity type movements, and then wonder how come they don't work. There's so much sort of struggle, so much sort of pain, and frustration arising out of this, trying to do something that's already done.
Because many of these movements proceed on the basis that things are different, that there is division, but we should get together. So we strive to foist unity on a field of division, disunity. Now it is the reverse actually. There is a basic unity. Due to our ways of thinking and living, we have fallen apart. But as knowledge grows, as consciousness grows, we become aware that these divisions are superficial. But the unity is basic. So it is there that the psychological and the spiritual experience comes in. Without a psychological oneness, a spiritual sense, we can never achieve unity. And that is what that day we were talking about, this world union movement with which I am connected. We are proceeding on the basis that it is only by individuals becoming aware of their spiritual oneness that everything can come. Otherwise, it will be an artificial unity. It can be union, but not unity. So they say, how is it possible everybody is doing like this, nuclear war and all that, but it doesn't matter really. As long as there are few individuals who, go within themselves and reach that level of the self, which is one in everybody, well, each person, such person becomes a force. But before we can do that, a psychological conception must be there, that we are one. There is a basic unity. Look at everything, matter, material things. There are so many buildings, so many continents, but all are based on one material principle. Similarly, life force, it is one ocean of life energy which feeds everything. There is one universal mind which flows into so many million formations. There is so many souls, but all souls are one, self. Mother used to relate, a incident. She said that when she was very young, it was in Paris, that one man, Frenchman who had come to India, he came back, and that as usual there was a lecture, public lecture, speaking of his experiences in the East, in India. So one old woman, she was a missionary who believed in the superiority of the Christianity, and the rest are heathens, and that sort of old theory, you know. So it seems she got up and asked, is it true that they count souls in India? That is 1 soul, 2 souls, 3 souls. So that man said yes. And how many are there? He said 1. See, that's the truth, and ultimately the soul is one. These verses, they have a power. You know, each is a mantra. Mantra is not a poetical composition, but the words themselves come from a deeper level, formed. You put it down and then see what's the meaning. They do not, as the words come, they don't begin to analyze what could be the meaning of this word or that word. The meaning follows the word. There is a controversy among scholars whether the sound follows the meaning or the meaning follows the sound. In the East, they say the sound creates. The sound carries the meaning. First the sound reverberates and the meaning becomes explicit. So there is a certain type of vibration which ensues when these things are repeated again and again. So we had the famous poet Tagore, you know, and he would always open his lectures with the first verse of this Upanishads, that all is for habitation by the Lord, in Sanskrit of course. And Sanskrit is a very old language, but chiseled. The meaning of Sanskrit itself is well polished. It is not a language for conversation, though there are people still who converse in Sanskrit, but it has attained a high level of perfection. Each word is chiseled and a source of power. The only language today which promises to acquire this characteristic is English. It has shown amazing vitality and flexibility to express new concepts, new experience that continuously comes in life. Other languages, you know, they have to make a do, join words, but here it is not. In French, for instance, they hardly admit 3 or 4 words a year in the French language. They have an Académie Française and they discuss whether this word can be admitted or not. Luckily, in English, we don't have this puristic.
You got new words all the time.
Yes, you see, and word should express the meaning. Now there are so many Americanisms which the English have readily accepted because they express the sense more readily than the old words. They have not limited them. Each year new editions of dictionaries come. If you see their Oxford dictionary, you know, so difference, no, pronunciation is different. In many words, you know, we were brought up in the British tradition. We pronounce many words differently and you pronounce here differently. But there is communication. It's not, nobody quarrels, I am right or you are wrong. Both are right. And it is just a way of expressing. You call it elevator here, they call it lift there. And funny thing is, when you go to a restaurant, you ask for the check and you give the bill. There it is the reverse. There we ask for the bill and give a check. Check is on a bank. Bill is what the trader makes up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see? That is a bill. But here it is like this. And for instance, you would say schedule. We say schedule. Now, you say, not only that, laboratory, you will say. We are trained to say laboratory. Laboratory. Tory, you say. Inventory. See, inventory. We say inventory. Well, it is, but nobody quarrels, But in French, this is unthinkable. That is why it has forfeited its right or title to be a world language. They are nice languages, Italian, things and all that. But English is a language that is so malleable, you can enlarge the significance of words so much. And the purest element is less in English. That is why it is expanding. Some of the American writers, they write such powerful English. No doubt the spelling is different, the sentence construction is different, but they deliver the message. Like bullets, they write short, concise. It's not the old English style, Victorian, long things. No. I've read a lot of American writers, and the English people today are following the American example. And the funny thing is, many of the American writers who have made a name are originally English fellows who have come and settled here. Many. Either they have been trained there, or English people who have settled in America. I have been very fascinated by the development. The freedom of culture here, freedom of thought, and mutual freedom you give, It is a great potentiality here. Mother used to say, looking at the map of America, he said, I have an impression that the new thing will start here. New age or new consciousness, whatever it is.
I think theosophists believe that too.
Yes.
It starts in the west and
Somewhere you say sun rises in the west. Isn't it? Somewhere somebody has said the sun rises in the west. Only the West has to awake to its responsibility. That they can do it. And there is a purpose. In the last years of the last century, number of Indian mystics and yogis in the Himalayas and in the mountains and caves, number of them separated by thousands of miles, they had the same vision that a new religion, they call it religion, will arise in the new world, and they need certain elements which are to go from the east. So they sent their disciples here, and many of them have worked here. They are not known much. I don't know whether I read last time when I came, in Nevada there is a small community now of natural order or something, Vitvan, V-I-T-V-A-N. He is an American young man who in the Seattle area. Now he was picked up by an Indian teacher, given the message, and that man developed it, and she started a new movement. Like that, but the Indian teacher's name is not known, he is known. Similarly, there are a number of movements which have started. And before that, there are what are called transcendentalists in America. Emerson, Thoreau. They had said that in this melting pot, within 50 years or so, the Eastern wisdom will come. And it will have to be integrated. So, lot of East coming here, leave aside the mushroom growth and this superficial phenomena, of these gurus and all that, you can leave it aside. But essentially, lot of Eastern concepts have come and got integrated here. Now, TM, well, it is easy to laugh at them today, but they have done such work that the concept of meditation, that the concept that there is a peace and truth and relaxation are possible even in this life. It is they who have familiarized the Western mind with the idea of meditation. Similarly, Hare Krishna, they have given an idea what is discipline. How many drug addicts and people have been claimed back by them? A discipline of life. What does it mean? That a love for God, there is life, joy in life. It is not just, something preparatory to hell or heaven, but there is a joy in life. This yoga, these postures and all that, it is elementary. But what leads beyond that? These breathing techniques, withdrawal, all these have become common. I read so much of literature of things. All these ideas are there scattered. And great things are afoot. I am one of the optimists who believe that by 2000 AD, something remarkable will start here. 2000. I don't know how many of you have read that book, Aquarian Conspiracy, by Marilyn Ferguson. She has collected data of all the movements in the last 100 years in America. How everything is converging to a new age of love. That is exactly what Mother says. The dominating and the motive of the next age will be love. Not knowledge, not strength, not material things, but love. And it only needs a little knack of shifting our emphasis here. You do not have all those economic problems with which the East is beset. They have no time to think of these things. Morning to evening, there is a grinding poverty. You see, imagine India is 1/3 of the size of America, but with 3 times the population of America. Japan is worse. China is worse. And they're such old countries. The whole land and everything have been overexploited. The old techniques are out of date. Overpopulation. So these are great problems there. And if the people have not gone under, it is due to their spiritual fortitude. There is a famine, they say yes, it is the will of God. What is there to cry about it? Face it. Here for every little thing these people are crying and making a big fuss. Somebody says there will be earthquake tomorrow, people start shifting. They are living in perpetual terror. That's not. I have always said it is a luxury of the Westerns, people here, to indulge in all these, the earthquakes, volcanoes and things will happen, and nuclear wars will happen. Well, our attitude is if it happens, it is going to happen. My worrying it now is not going to prevent it. So let me make the best of the opportunity for me. So nobody bothers in India about these nuclear bombs and all that. Nobody bothers. Famines come, floods come. Every year there are these things happening in Southeast Asia also. They take it bravely. Either they say it is my karma, what I have done last birth I am reaping now, or it is the will of God. And they get about it. They don't sit crying. But that is due to this spiritual attitude which is in the race memory, race consciousness. Well, studies like this help you to get an idea, and a study unconsciously influences your attitude. I think we'll break for 15 minutes and then begin with the Kena Upanishads. The Kena Upanishad. First part raises a number of questions. First, Sanskrit, or I think I'll first read the English and then read the whole thing in Sanskrit. By whom missioned falls the mind short to its mark, the senses of the mind, how do they go and touch their objectives? By whom yoked moves the first life breath forward on its paths? By whom impelled is this word that men speak? What gods set eye and ear to their workings? That is, so many faculties of ours that put us in touch with the world, hearing, seeing, speaking, breathing, mentalizing. What is it that impels them to do that? Do they do it on their own? The answer, that which is hearing of our hearing, mind of our mind, speech of our speech, that too is life of our life breath and sight of our sight. That is, for each sense, for each faculty that we are familiar with, there is a master sense. There is a master faculty behind that impulse. Those who are aware of it, the wise, are released beyond, and they pass from this world and become immortal. Those who become aware of the master sense, they go into the realm of truth, and there sight travels not, nor speech, nor mind. We know it not, nor can distinguish how one should teach of it, for it is other than the known. It is there above the unknown. The known, above the known is the unknown, but above the unknown there is still something else. It is there above the unknown. It is so we have heard from men of old who declared that to our understanding. And here he explains how it operates. That which is unexpressed by the word, that by which the word is expressed, know that to be the Brahman. Brahman is the reality, and not this which men follow after here. That which thinks not by the mind, that by which the mind is thought, know that to be Brahman, and not that which men follow after here. That which sees not with the eye, that by which one sees, the eye sees. Know that to be the Brahman, and not that which men follow after here. This constant refrain is intended to drive home the message. That which hears not with the ear, that by which the ear's hearing is heard, know that to be Brahman, and not this which men follow after here. That which breathes not with the breath, that by which the life breath is led forward in its paths, know that to be the Brahman, and not this which men follow after here. That there is a master intelligence, a master mind, a master life, a master sight, a master audition, all of which are Brahman. Seek that, and not what we follow here in the activity of the senses, thinking that the truth is here, the reality is here. Our mind thinks because there is something else which thinks through the mind. Our eyes see because there is something else which sees through the eye, which makes the eye see. Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha kena prana prathama praiti yuktaha keneshitam vacham imam vadanti chakshush shrotram kau devo yunakti shrotrasya shrotram manaso manoyat vachoha vacham savu pranasya pranaha चक्षुषश्चक्षुः अतिमुच्य धीराः प्रेत्य अस्मान् लोकात् अमृता भवन्ति न तत्र चक्षुर् गच्छति न वाग्गच्छति नो मनो न विद्मो न विजानीमो यथैतद् अनुशिष्यात् अन्यदेव तद्विदितात् अथो अविदितात् अधि इति शुश्रुम पूर्वेषाम् एनस्तद् याचचक्षिरे यद्वाचानभ्युदितं येन वाग् अभ्युज्यते तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यन्मनसा न मनुते येन आहुर्मनो मतं तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यच्चक्षुषा न पश्यति येन चक्षुंषि पश्यति तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यच्छ्रोत्रेण न शृणोति येन श्रोत्रमिदं श्रुतं तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते यत् प्राणेन न प्राणिति येन प्राणः प्रणीयते तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदम् उपासते. That is, shift your gaze to the master intelligence, to the master wisdom. That is the reality, that is Brahman. The next he says, this is very important. If thou thinkest that thou knowest it well, little indeed dost thou know the form of Brahman. That of it which is thou, that of it which is in the gods, this thou hast to think out. I think it known. We think we know, but we do not know. It is always something beyond what we know. I think not that I know it well, and yet I know that it is not unknown to me. When we begin to realize that we really do not know it, then we have begun to understand. Somewhere in our being we know it, but not in the mind. He of us who knows it knows that. He knows that it is not unknown to him. He by whom it is not thought out has the thought of it. When you do not make an attempt to think it out, then really that reality is present in you. He by whom it is thought out knows it not. It is unknown to the discernment of those who discern it. By those who seek not to discern of it, it is discerned. That is, as long as our mind is active, we try to analyze, we try to grasp, it escapes. But if we can keep our mind passive, quiet, then something of it reflects itself in the mind, and there is some touch in our consciousness. Mind is only a part of our consciousness. So it is when our consciousness is in touch, it can be in the heart, it can be in the body, it can be intuitive. Then it travels into the mind. But when we start with the mind, you erect a wall. Here it is said, when it is known by perception that reflects it, then one has the thought of it, for one finds immortality. By the self, one finds the force to attain, and by the knowledge, one finds immortality. Here again, the Upanishadic seers make a distinction between knowing and understanding. Knowing is to know in terms of the mind. Understanding is absorbing. You understand really by identity. There are so many types of knowledge, but the highest knowledge is knowledge by identity. When you are quiet, when you have sympathy, your consciousness enters into the consciousness of what you want to know, and that yields its contents to you. You have a flash, you call it intuition. You have a feeling, you call it I know it somehow. You don't arrive at it as a conclusion after deduction. You don't reason it out. Once that reflection is there, thereafter you justify it to the mind through the process of rationalization. So true knowledge is never obtained by the mind. You may prepare for it by the mind, but the final moment is beyond the mind or behind the mind. And here is a very important declaration. If here one comes to that knowledge, then one truly is. If here one comes not to the knowledge, then great is the perdition. That is, this life, human life, is a very great, precious opportunity given to us. If we exert ourselves, make the right use of the opportunity, and realize the truth, then we have truly lived, justified the opportunity given to us. But if we fritter away our life, if we don't arrive, then great is the perdition. The wise distinguish that, the reality, in all kinds of becomings, and they pass forward from this world and become immortal. That is, the divine reality is to be perceived, discovered, not only in ourselves, but in all. It is an incomplete realization to see God only in ourselves. To recognize the presence of God in all, that completes the knowledge. Otherwise, it is a partial knowledge. Then, the Upanishad narrates a story. Now, these stories, what are called parables, they always deliver a truth in a poetic form, in a story form. And here is the setting. You know, in all mythologies, there is always a battle between the gods and the titans, between the guardians of truth and the guardians of falsehood. Two opposite camps. So, once there was a huge battle and the gods won, defeating the adversary. So the gods started congratulating themselves, how great we are, we have won, and each one mutually is congratulating. They were enjoying themselves. At that time, they said, ours is the victory, ours is the greatness, we are so great. As they were talking, then something, some being appeared before them. It is, he calls it demon. And the other gods call Agni, the flame god, they tell him, you are supposed to know everything. Go and find out who that person is, who is that being, what is that entity. Now Agni, that god, rushes towards him because there is nothing he cannot know. So he said, he tells that being, I am Agni, I am he that knows all things born. And who are you? I can find out. Then that demon, that being, that entity, put a blade of grass before and said, if that is your power, O God, Agni, burn this blade of grass. And Agni rushes towards that, but he can't burn. It refuses to burn. Then he comes back with a long face and tells his companions, sorry, I could not know that mighty demon and I could not burn this. Then there is the god of wind. They said, you at least go now and see what it's all about. So the demon says, all right, you blow up this blade of grass. Vayu rushes, the wind, god of wind rushes, but he cannot. Then he comes back. Then there is the god Indra, the god of the divine mind, the god of illumined mind. So Indra is sent. You go and find out, because the very presence of that being is a challenge to these people, to these gods. So Indra is sent. Now get that knowledge. He goes. But as he rushed, that demon disappears. The blade is not there. But Indra does not come back. The god of mind goes further. He doesn't return. And there he sees the woman. There is the daughter of the mountains, snowy summits. And he asks her, who was that mighty demon? And she tells him. She gives him that knowledge. It is the eternal. That is Brahman. And of the eternal is this victory, in which ye shall grow to greatness. You are all glorying in the greatness of that Brahman. So she gives the knowledge. The Divine Mother, she gives the knowledge to the gods. And the force of human aspiration, that comes back. The speed of life, that comes back. But the mind, the divine, enlightened, luminous mind, that doesn't come back. It goes. But as it reaches, the reality disappears, because the mind cannot grasp that. And he goes further, and the knowledge is revealed to him by the divine Shakti, by the Divine Mother, that is Brahman, and you are growing in that greatness. So the whole story is all our faculties, of all our faculties, the purified and the enlightened mind alone can approach, but it has to submit. It has to get the revelation from the divine grace, the divine power. The gods, that is our psychological powers, willpower, life power, mind power. Now all these have to aspire, have to grow towards the high reality. And the knowledge of that reality comes to us as if in a flash, lightnings, or like the falling of our eyelid, that we get hints, we get droppings of knowledge, because we can't sustain or hold the whole knowledge at a time. So like lightnings, like the droppings of eyelid, there is a descent of higher consciousness, descent of knowledge. And what receives that lightning, what receives that impact, holds it and constantly remembers it. To hear is not enough. To receive is not enough. To remember, to affirm it again and again, to dig it deep, that creates grooves in our consciousness. That helps to knowledge to settle in us. By constant receiving, you aspire for it. Keep yourself open. You receive it. You remember it. You assimilate it. And what's that? Is it something cold, impersonal, something barren, something severe, the reality? He says no. The name of that is delight. As that delight, one should follow after it. The nature of Brahman is joy, delight. It is a self-existent delight. This delight is different from pleasure. Pleasure is caused by external excitations. But the divine delight is self-existent. And he says, he who realizes that the divine, that God is delight, towards him verily all existence is yearn. That is, he is full of the divine as delight. Everybody is drawn to that person. Not only human beings, he says all beings, even creatures, animals, trees, they all tend towards him because he is full of that bliss. So one who realizes the divine as bliss, he is always loved, he is always adored, he is always cherished. And wherever he goes, he can never be alone. Always there are behind, because he gives that food spontaneously. And then this text says, thou hast said, speak to me, Upanishad. Spoken to thee is Upanishad. This is the highest knowledge of the eternal verily is the Upanishad that we have spoken. And now he comes to a very important passage. Of this knowledge, austerity and self-conquest and works are the foundation. Knowledge, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of the reality, doesn't just fall from heaven. It is slowly, it is an edifice, it is a structure that is slowly formed in our consciousness. And of that, austerity, in Sanskrit it is called tapas. Now tapas is wrongly taken to be, self-infliction, denial of things to oneself, no food, no sleep, always standing, punishing oneself, denying the senses. But no, austerity, tapas means focusing of energies on a particular object. You gather up all your energies and direct them one-pointedly to achieve what you want. This marshalling of energies, focusing them, on a sustained basis is called austerity. So austerity and self-conquest, discipline, control of oneself, control of one's senses, movements and works, not abstention from work, but engaging oneself in the right type of work without motivation by ego and desire. These three form the foundation. The Vedas are its limbs, the various revelations. The various revelations are the limbs of this knowledge. And truth is its dwelling place. Where there is no truth, there can be no real knowledge. He who knows this knowledge smites evil away from him, and in the vaster world and infinite heaven finds his foundation. He finds his foundation. Evil has to be eliminated. Truth has to be regarded and cherished. Works have to be done. Senses have to be conquered. And energies have to be focused. This is the high note on which this Upanishad ends. But the main important part of this is the parable of the gods. That even the gods have their ego, and they have to learn humility and learn to receive from the Divine Mother. The next time we will take up a simpler Upanishads. We will take up the Mundaka Upanishads. Please note, Mundaka Upanishad. You will like it with this background. Hi. Kena Upanishad.
Summarize
Hi. Mundaka, Mundaka. Now, there are some famous, I spoke of mantras, so there are some famous chants or prayers in the whole range of Upanishads, which if you repeat when you are alone, when you are in collective, it raises your consciousness and unites it with something higher. So there is a chant in one of the major Upanishads called Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which has a great power. So Vasanti has agreed to recite that chant and help you all to chant it with her. She has done it before in Far Horizons camp on the Sierra Mountains, and they pick it up very well, So she has given it as her own tune so that it is easy for you all to enter into that melody. So here she is.